can just remind us, Megan, who can apply to Jordan's Principle?
So pretty much anyone can apply to Jordan's Principle. Think of parents, grandparents, teachers, as long as they follow their internal procedure. A community worker, a professional, anybody working with a child. A 16-year-old can apply for themselves. Again, you do not have to have a disability or a diagnosis, and it's 0 to 17.
Do you want to share some of the really interesting applications you received, or some of the people that have applied for things that you don't see every day?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think anything interesting will probably be something above normative standards, so above the normal. I have received applications for a freezer. So a family, a lot of food, they needed a second freezer. There's been a lot of applications for summer camps. What else is fun? A lot of iPads.
The climbing wall was an interesting one.
Oh, yes. It was a group application. Some teachers, I believe, decided to come up with a project for a climbing wall. And they were able to get funding, I think, from the HEAL Fund and other different places. But the gap in service was they were missing some funding for that project. So they applied to Jordan's Principle for the remainder. Yeah. There's been a lot of respite, people who've been taken out on the land by grandparents or caretakers.
Yeah. And also you'd mentioned summer camps. So it could be summer camps down here in Montreal or the Ottawa area for like one child at a time. We've also had people who've applied to subsidize offering a summer camp in their community. Maybe the clinic or the MSDC will pay for a portion of it, but they apply to Jordan Principle for snacks or for arts and craft materials. So it could be part of the missing funds. Or sometimes it's to have, you want to tell the Lyle story? I love that story.
Well, it was a child who, I think it was the Waskagonish, oh, now it's not coming to me, youth winter journey camp. And to go out on the land, he needed, because of his different disability or special needs, he needed to have a caretaker 24/7. Because if you think about it, the outhouse, all the activities that you're doing outside, and the camp itself could not pay for this caretaker. So the family applied for funding to pay for somebody to go out on the land with him, attend this camp for 3 weeks. And he was super happy about that. He came home, he caught his first beaver. They were really happy with that application.
And again, that family signed off consent that we could share that story. So we often use a picture of the young man with his first beaver. So again, if you do choose to sign that portion of the consent, really is just to share ideas and stories of different applications.
Art therapy has been a big one as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's say they, an application is filled out, they receive the money. Is there a time limit on when, the money has to be spent or the budget needs to be spent?
Yeah, so you need to, the time frame is the fiscal year. So March 31st, you do need to reapply every year because things are always changing. So your support letter from 3 years ago might not be relevant to the child's situation right now. Indigenous Services Canada already has the child's name, contact information, all of that, but the actual request and maybe an updated support letter or quotation is helpful to reapply.
So we do our best this time of year to contact people and see how we can help. Fortunately, this year we're down to sort of Megan. So Megan's been doing her best for very large projects or projects that are sensitive if the funds don't come in. We've been trying to reach out to people and make sure that they know they have to reapply if they want to continue on the project or the application.
So another question is, does Jordan's Principle have a list of types of services or products that Jordan's Principle covers, or can it just, be anything that Jordan's Principle can cover?
Okay, I did see that question come up in the chat, and I thought it was really interesting because there is a list. If you go on our website, there's a brochure that'll outline different things you can apply for in the brochure. But the great thing about Jordan's Principle, and especially being able to apply for above normative, that more than standard services and products, you can really apply for anything as long as it's benefiting the child or it's helping. Any gap in service, you can apply for.
Yeah, it's really that support letter, the child at the center, that holistic view, in answering those questions. If you can outline, answer all of those questions, there's a good chance that the application goes through.
Like, I'm just trying to think of things outside the box. I know we went through that, but maybe a fence outside your house, so that your child is not running around. If you can link that to the child's needs. We've also had different things, wheelchair ramps, adaptations. Sometimes if the band is not covering it because they've used those funds, you can come to Jordan's Principle. Even, I think there was an application, hockey equipment. And another example I'll give you is, let's say the parent wants to take a training and it costs a bit of money to learn something about their child, parenting skills, learn about ADHD. That training is going to benefit the child, so you can apply for that as well.
So you had mentioned summer camp. Now, can Jordan's Principle pay for summer camp that are, again, for kids that live off territory or not off territory? It's fine, but for consecutive like days in a row. So not so much a sleepaway camp. So if we think about, you know, the camps here in Kirkland, where the day camp for the summer, is that something that Jordan's Principle could cover if, let's say, they're a resident of the borough?
Yeah. Yes, of course. I think there's also been applications, it may have been when my previous colleagues were working, of summer camps outside of the province, because it was a specific camp. I think it was a mutism camp, and the parents joined because there was workshops. So there's no limit on the amount of days, where it has to be, as long as you can explain in your support letter that this summer camp is going to be benefiting the child and their specific needs. There's not really any limitations.
No, the only thing, again, we have to check gap in service. So for example, if the child does have a disability, there are occasionally funds available. So we have to use those funds first. And once those funds are exhausted, there's none left or that kind of thing, then off we go to apply to camp. So it's pretty certain that you would get the camp. It's just a question. We do have to ensure that there's no other supply of funds, either the band or a fund or a government program that would cover. So I know for children, for example, with a physical disability or an intellectual disability, there could be funds for like a certain amount for camp, and then Jordan Principle would pay the rest.
So let's say we asked for an iPad in the application. How long is the delay to get the iPad? So if you can give us two options, if I buy the iPad that's already been pre-approved by Jordan's Principle, and then I give you guys a receipt, and then the other option, if you can tell us how that goes if Jordan's Principle orders the iPad for us. So if you can explain that.
Good question. So the fastest way to get your product would be that if you as the parent or whoever buys it, because then you have it right away and you're in control of everything. But I do want to mention, you need to make sure that your application is approved. There have been instances where parents have bought things, and then, you know, you want to make sure that you have the funding first, and then you can buy it. And then we would reimburse you. Otherwise, we would purchase the item and then make sure it comes to Mississini, we receive it, and then we would ship it to you. So it does take a bit longer, and we are down to me and my coworker at the moment. So it is faster, but sometimes it's more expensive, you know, if you have a large purchase, to front those funds.
So if we're looking to buy an iPad and I'm like, you know what, I'll just pay for it So when I do have to wait for that approval from IF saying that I can buy it, but I also have to include like shipping, taxes, and all that other stuff. Is that correct? Or do I just put the amount of the iPad?
So you want to make sure that you're including shipping, taxes, everything, so that your total is, the most accurate. However, if you get your approval, so you receive your approval, it's for $600, and then you go and buy the iPad. Whoops, the shipping or the taxes, or maybe the iPad was on sale and now it's a bit more expensive. Just send us an email, double check and confirm that we can request a modification before you purchase, because if it's $50 more expensive on our end, we can request a modification.
If we request for a special mini bus, because there's a need in the community, especially for the children, because some cannot ride the regular bus because of the loud noises.
So the difficulty with that idea is who's owning the bus, who's insuring the bus, who's in charge of the bus. So that's a difficult question or application to get through. If there's an organization, a team in your community who has organized the bus, is going to take care of that and has partial funds, and you're applying for funding to make that project a reality, that could be an interesting application to go to Jordan Principal. But to the bus, the insurance, who's in charge of it, because this was an idea that someone in the community had to be the school bus driver. There's too many other legal questions involved in that project. So again, if it's just a question of partial funding or even 3/4 funding, but you have the other elements like the driver's cost is going to be covered, the insurance, where's it going to be parked, that kind of thing, then yes, it could be part of the application.
So I have, again, I think that the reimbursement. So if you can just reiterate, Megan, that, if you order something, what the reimbursement is like.
Okay, so let's say you're a parent, you receive your approval letter, either for a service or a product. So if it's a service, let's say SLP therapy, you as the parent, you can pay for that. You must keep your receipt because that shows proof of payment. And you would fill out a direct deposit form, send us your void check. And when you send us your receipt and we know that you have paid for the service, then we go through our financial procedure and reimburse you through a direct deposit.
Thank you. So, okay, so here's another, it's a bit lengthy, so bear with me. So there is a psychotherapist in Montreal, and parents would like to go and see this therapist in Montreal to work on themselves. So the therapy isn't necessarily for the child, but it's for the parent to receive the services. An example, a mother coping, to learn better coping skills regarding her depression. And this would benefit the child. Is this something that Jordan's Principal would cover, since in the long run it would benefit the child, even though the service is directly for the parent?
Yeah, so good question. Complex, but I have received some applications like that, and you just need to make sure that you are checking your community, because we don't want to be duplicating services. Sometimes wellness, Cree Health Board do pay for certain therapies or services. If that doesn't suit you, or it's not meeting your needs, or it's a waiting list and it's a gap, then you can apply your support letter, because so Jordan's Principal is child first. So if you're going to be applying for a service that's going to be for the parent but benefiting the child, you're going to have to include a little bit more information, because it's more than the basic. So you'd really have to explain and connect how the therapy is going to affect the child. So you're going to learn parenting skills, et cetera, et cetera. Just make sure that it's a good support letter.
Great, thank you. So again, when we order something, we need an ISK number first. Is this correct? Like, I'm not just going to go and order something because I'm like, oh, my kid needs this. It was recommended. I need an ISK number.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's been situations where the approval letter will give you the details of your approval. So it'll say iPad for $600, travel fees for $850. So you know exactly the budget that you have. We've had sometimes parents buy, 3 of something because it came with a deal, but that doesn't match the approval letter. So we can only reimburse you for that. So it's important to have your ISK number, your approval letter, so you know how much funding you have to spend.
Okay, so let's say, I get my application, it's done, it's approved, all that goodness. But you guys, Jordan's Principle, would be paying or ordering the iPad. How is there what would be the length of time it would take to order the iPad, get it to Miss Dissany, and then have it shipped to my community? Like, do you have approximate time of how long that would take?
Right now, Apple, I think we've been going through Amazon because it's faster to get iPads than through Apple. The iPad itself to come to Miss Dissany can take up to 3 weeks. Once we receive it, the internal mail process is really quick. I just check the box. Oh, iPad, perfect. Internal mail to Waskaganish. It's just that shipping time. I would say up to a month.
And it's right now, it's also because of COVID and delay. So anything technology based really doesn't have a delay to do with Jordan Principle. It has a delay it's just hard to get. I did that order last year and it took 1 week. Yeah. So sometimes it's great. And sometimes it's been quite challenging. There was a time, I think, Megan, you went to Montreal, bought a whole bunch of iPads and then drove back up into community. I think you were on a leave, on a sortie. And again, financially right now, we're just being very transparent. Anybody who wants to work for Jordan Principle, we are hiring. We need a new admin tech because we're using the disability program specialized service admin tech to do both jobs at the same time. So we are doing our best to look at time sensitive applications. And again, if someone can purchase the item and get reimbursed, that is the fastest way. But again, we do our best to get you the item as quickly as possible.
Now, is there a limit of how many times I can apply for one child, or like a maximum amount? Not that I'm trying to buy my kid a horse here, but is there a maximum amount of funds that I could use, or a maximum amount of number of applications I can do in a year?
No. So there's no maximum amount of applications you can do in a year. You can do as many as the child needs. Maximum for funding, no, but I will put a little asterisk. As long as you can explain it in your support letter, then, there's no problem. Sometimes you might want to spend a little bit more money on wood. Let's say you're doing a home modification because it's going to be coming from Matagami, and it's closer, or it's better quality. As long as you can explain why you're going a bit more expensive, that's okay.
Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one because we're not IT. I'm not a specialist. But if I order an iPad for my child through Jordan's Principle and I receive one, do I call Apple or do I call you to help me out with all of this?
Apple.
Well, I was going to say, I wasn't able to get the PowerPoint going, so you're not going to come to me. But I think, it would be Apple if there's any. I know some people have ordered or applied for applications, so things you get an app. WordQ is one of them, for example. In that case, you need an Apple ID to create that. So we could either purchase Apple gift cards and have you create it, or reimburse you once you purchase the app.
There's also a hope in your application, if you are getting a support letter from a professional, that there is some support and assistance. So if it is an app for communication, there is a hope that you could put in your application for that support from the clinic who supported that, or from the professional. I know DPSS, so Disability Program Specialized Services, there have been some requests that have been supported by members of the team that, do their best to look into that. If it's a school, again, if that's recommended by an educational institution, we're looking at that. So those are things Megan can help you when you're building your application. It might be an extra session with the professional for the purpose of learning to use your tools. And then you just put in that. And now I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if Apple does have a support line, or there's appointments you can make, to learn more, if there's a cost involved in that, and that's what you need to render your service, then you would put that in your application to support you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made, that you can have support from the person who helped you with that application. A lot of the time it's the community worker. They can link you with anybody. And even if the community worker it was you as a parent who filled out the application, you can still go to your case manager or, whoever's working with you and your child and help you once you receive your service or product.
I have a bit, it may or may not apply, since this is more on the Inuit side and Kujalapik next to what Max do. So I'm hoping that I'll just read you the story and we'll see what you can come up with. So there's a child that can't attend school full time because there's a lack of services and space. Also, the parents need to come to the school to change the diaper because of the lack of services. I have been told that it is impossible to go through Jordan's principal because the school is supposed to have the funding already. However, this child still doesn't have access to school full time in decent conditions. Would there be a way to make this work?
So that's an interesting one, because there's so many pockets of truth in there. And then there's real life. Everybody's doing the best that they can. So it is the responsibility of the school to provide the service to the best of their ability to meet the child's needs. That being said, a bathroom that hasn't been adapted is not going to be adapted in a month. So it is a responsibility of the school. So my first thing, and this is being interim coordinator of disabilities, it would be to make sure that this not only is the school principal aware, but the school board. So I believe that's Kativik. So Kativik is aware of what their needs are. So there could be some progress going on. The next part is, I don't know Kativik's funding, but if I look at school boards, they often do have the money. The problem is human resources. There's just not enough people. So we could make an application for Jordan Principal, but you're getting what they already have funding. Where are you going to get the person to help? So it's not a no, but does it really solve the problem? So you could meet with your focal coordinator, so your equivalent of Megan. Maybe the parents are missing work, right? And that's causing lack of income to the family, stress. So maybe we can look at supporting the family through respite, through babysitting, through supervision, through wage support. Those are different ideas. So we can look at how else could we support this family as they're going through this difficult time. So we can't get in and be telling the school what to do. And I'm 100% sure if the school could, they would. It's usually a human resource. So my suggestion, I don't know on the Inuit side if you have case managers or how your clinic works, but if there's a person there who manages cases, or you can reach out to your focal coordinator and brainstorm how you could support the family around this situation.